Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marcus show. I'm your host, Marcus Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined by Miss Lori Asbury. But before bringing up Lori to the stage, I want to thank one of our amazing sponsors, Franosity. Franosity helps people get funding to get into the franchise business. Franosity helps their clients create a blueprint and a roadmap to succeed in the franchise business. And Franosity helps their clients create a legacy by creating or getting involved in the franchise business. You can go to their website, www.franosity, that's FRANOCITY.com, or shoot Cliff Nanamacher an email at cliffn@franosity.com. Now, here she is, Lori. How you doing today, Lori?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us, young lady.
You bet. You
First,
bet.
first question, Lori.
Mhm.
What does the word authentic/authenticity mean to you?
Actually, it really means just being who you say you are, and I think that's where kind of maybe the word authenticity originally, what its original meaning was, and now it's kind of transformed into a lot of different meanings. But I think at the end of the day, it's really delivering on who you actually say you are, and so that those two things are truth.
You know, Lori, I really respect that because it is delivering on who you say you are. It's no false advertisement. It's not trying to be something and or someone that you know you can't sustain. It's you being, I took all the time, it's you being who you are in the moment, right, Lori? Knowing that the moment is going to change. And when you really think about that, it means that it's timeless. It's that it's always evolving. It doesn't stay still. It's not stagnant. You just have to keep moving, growing, and recognizing, right, Lori, and not allowing to keep that, who you really are kind of like suppressed or in a box. Let who you are, right, Lori, really stand out. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that's exactly right. I think at the end of the day, as people or as a business that has a brand voice, I think the most important thing is always remaining true to your principles, true to your core values, true to who you always are. But that doesn't mean that you can't evolve as a person or as an organization. And I think all those things, they're not mutually exclusive. I think there can be an evolutionary process for sure, and there should be, obviously, as especially with an organization who's having to react to competitive landscape or trends in a specific industry and that type of thing. But at the end of the day, your core principles should always remain true to who you really are, and that's what really keeps a brand or a human being truly authentic. I think where authenticity may have started to become a buzzword and a lot of people were calling themselves authentic was because they were showing maybe glib behind the scenes, situations of an organization, or CEOs were going on LinkedIn and sharing their hearts and pouring out their, deepest, darkest secrets on LinkedIn. And it became more performative than it was really, truly authentic. And so I think at the end of the day, what's the most important thing about being authentic is being true to who you really say you are, and that as a business, your customers will actually experience what you say you are as a business. And if those two aren't congruous, then that's where you can have real big problems.
Well, Lori, it's very interesting. I we create this podcast calling it Get Authentic because it's something that we felt a lot of people wanted to talk about, but
Hmm.
at the same time, nobody wanted to talk about. And so
Hmm.
I'll be the first to tell you when things go well. I'm like, that's good. Hey, I've had a good day. Things are going well. I'll be the first to tell you I had a bad day when I was going through my divorce and couldn't get out
Hmm.
of bed. I think what happens is for me, when I share, I'm not trying to have you, feel sorry for me or be excited for me. I'm trying to tell you, hey, in life, if you go through a hardship, you too can bounce back. Hey, when you have a good day, that's awesome. How do you keep trying to build on that good day? And so it's more about the value and the stories around who I am to help others versus trying to
Hmm.
tell you something to feel sorry for me. I don't want you to feel sorry for me because again, it's not about that. It's about really learning. So again, this is awesome. So Lori, please tell us a bit more about you, your backstory, and what you're currently doing now in your career.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I am. I have an organization, a full service advertising agency called CMOco, Marketing and Advertising, and originally when we first started the business, it was really designed to help companies that were anywhere from really truly our sweet spot was 1 million in income to 100 million in income. We served businesses in that space who were potentially in a high growth mode, but didn't necessarily have an internal chief marketing officer and have a marketing department or an advertising department internally. And we came in and we filled that spot. And over time, we've evolved really to be more of a full service advertising agency. But really, how we're differentiated from other traditional ad agencies is that we really focus right out of the gate with our clients on developing very comprehensive strategic marketing and advertising plans that are really aligned with the organization's revenue goals. So we really get a good understanding of where they fit in their competitive landscape, how their company is differentiated, what's the lowest hanging fruit in terms of driving their sales, and then we develop marketing and advertising strategies that help them reach their goals. So we do also just have clients that come to us and need an ad campaign for a specific point in time, and we do that very well. But we really, in most cases, work with our clients on a longer term basis. My background is actually working for major media companies prior to starting the ad agency. I worked for CBS television stations group. I worked for the Fox television stations group. At the time, Fox owned and operated 35 TV stations across the country, and I was head of marketing and advertising for those 35 TV stations, so I traveled a lot. And then I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee to head up Senior Vice President of Marketing, Creative, and Brand Strategy for HGTV when it was owned by Scripps Networks. And then it went through a corporate reorganization. And I actually lost my job in a just a corporate like reorg, and decided to start this agency because I had small children at the time and I was a single mom and wanted my children to be rooted somewhere and have a very steady upbringing. And in the media business, you have to move around a lot, and you may have a job for 4 or 5 years at best, and then you're kind of moving on to the
Oh,
next thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so it was really important for me to have my kids be rooted and have a place to be able to call home and grow up in one place. And so I thought the best thing, and actually, to be honest, the most secure thing for me to do would be able to start my own business. I felt that I felt confident in my ability to be able to make it work. And it's been an ebb and flow, of course, as anything,
Sure,
as any
sure,
small business
sure,
owner. But
sure.
God is good and has provided. And yeah, 15 years. We're starting our 15th year in business this year, so really, really blessed. And really, the past few years have been really, really great. So we've had a really lot of good growth in the last few years.
That's awesome. I love this. So a couple questions. So first, when you started the company, how
Mhm.
many employees did you have when you started 15 years ago? And how many do you
Mhm.
have now
Yeah,
today?
yeah, yeah, sure. So originally it was just me, and then I was actually in
Mhm.
partnership with a another gentleman who owned a web development and design company, and they really operated like my back end and my infrastructure. So he had designers and people on staff with his other company, with his web design company, and I would get accounts and manage the accounts and pass through a lot of the execution to the creative team on his side. And then over the years, I was just bringing in a lot of business and we were growing internally, and it just made more sense for me to start to hire my own staff. I ultimately bought him out of the business and went completely out on my own. So now I have 12 employees. So we're still boutique, but we're definitely grown. We're seven-figure ad agency now, so multiple seven-figure ad agencies. So yeah, it's really gone well. So, and in hindsight, again, looking back, are there things I could have done differently? Should I have taken on more debt in order to really, pump, infuse cash into the business, maybe grow it more aggressively? But, again, just being by myself in terms of owning the business by myself, and then having the risk of being a single mom and that responsibility and the financial responsibility of that, I just was a little bit more judicious, I guess I would say, with taking on the risk, but risk enough to be able to grow it, and it's all been good, so no complaints.
Lori, that segment right there is the true definition of authenticity. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear that? She talked about some things ups, downs, reality, real things, things she could have done differently, things she could have made moves on and tried to be a little bit more, focused on. She talks about she could have took on some debt, didn't do it. She had kids at home, single mom. This is what we're talking about. And again, love her honesty and her authenticity because again, her firm is still boutique, but it's
Mhm.
grown.
Mhm.
What's that? 12-fold. And again, ladies and gentlemen, 15 years in business, 12 employees. Do you hear that? It's not about trying to grow something fast. Again, multiple seven-figure company, but 15 years of hard work, ups and downs, ebbs and flows, good things here, great things here, struggles here, all that. So again, this is the whole essence of our show. So I'm loving this. So next question, Lori.
Mhm.
People do not understand, I feel, how important marketing is.
Mhm.
Ben, who's been with me for 3.5 years, and I referred Ben so many people that want to start a podcast or that because podcasting is a form of marketing. It's a
Mhm.
form of getting your brand out there. I wouldn't have met
100%.
you without this
Mhm.
podcast, right? And I tell people marketing is the act or the art of getting your product and or service in front of your potential target consumer clients in a non-pushy, non-aggressive manner so they are aware of you. If they're not aware of you, right, Lori, they can never buy your product and or service. Please talk to our global audience that's listening about how, like, what do you think marketing is and
Mhm.
how important marketing truly is?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously there's so many different forms of marketing today and honestly, it just the evolution of marketing and advertising even within the last 3 years or 5 years, let's say extended out over 5 years, but really the big shift in marketing and advertising happened with the advent of social media, right? And that just really changed our media consumption and actually changed how we get messages, how we consume media, how we engage with media. So obviously the rise of digital technology has obviously had such a powerful influence in just the overall industry of marketing and advertising. But at the core, even just really the primary principle of marketing and advertising hasn't changed over time. It's about how you connect with consumers, how you create a connection with them that's relevant and meaningful to them in order to inspire them either engage you for services or to buy your products and services. And so, that at its core principle hasn't changed. But I think what happens is a lot of people, it is an investment and you have to be fully committed to that investment. And there's really smart ways in which you can do it. We always make our advertising budget recommendations to our clients based on a percentage of income, so that it's rooted in something thoughtful and that it's aligned with specific goals. And we're always focused on a return on investment or a return on what we call a ROAS, a return on ad spend. So we're always looking to make sure that we're, striving for a 3 to 4 times multiple on the investment in terms of a return on that. And so it is important to, get your brand out there and do it. And you can't just rely on organic social media. Just a heads up on that. It's just not going to work, especially if you're a business, because Mark Zuckerberg, as genius as he is not going to let you build, your business on his back for free. So, you can certainly do paid ads on Meta and get a lot of exposure, and we do a lot of paid Meta campaigns, that's for sure. But your organic social media is going to have limited reach. So if you're thinking that you can grow your business just through organic social media, that is a component of it, absolutely. But you have to look for other tools and other resources. So, paid digital campaigns, whether it be Meta or display or video pre-roll or over-the-top streaming, or even just some of the traditional forms, television, radio, print. There's an appropriate media mix out there for your specific business, and based on the type of business you are is kind of the it will dictate how we recommend what platforms that you should be in order to reach your specific target consumer. And one thing I just want to add too, just real quickly on the digital side, is the beauty of it is, one, it's highly measurable, but also we're able to get super granular in terms of who we're targeting, which is just so awesome. The data that we have access to now based on people's consumption of digital media is so powerful because we can find specific audiences down to a very, very granular level, which allows the ad budget to be highly efficient.
You know, I just wrote something down about being able to track and have data and measurable. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the type of marketing agency you want to work with that is saying things like this. You'd be surprised how many people out there that are in her space. And I say, well, what is your data and how are you tracking? Oh, well, we just use, what you tell us. Well, no, that's not going to
Mm-hmm.
do it for me. I
Mm-hmm.
got to know more than if I'm going to spend thousands of dollars for marketing, I need to know something. And again, I love what she also said about how people like Mark Zuckerberg, the guy who owns LinkedIn, they're not going to allow you to grow organically. They're just not going to do it because they realize there's money to be made. So, for example, right, Lori, we notice, Asha, I'll get your thoughts on this. I'll talk LinkedIn. Facebook, we do a lot, and you and I are going to chat offline because,
Mm-hmm.
there's ways for us to collaborate. I just listen to what
Mm-hmm.
you say, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But with LinkedIn, we have a lot of experience there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before, when I was doing LinkedIn organically, it was okay. We would get some reads, but nothing consistent, right? Well, now that we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator for
Mm-hmm.
$120 a month,
Mm-hmm.
now we're tying in Bot Dog, which works with LinkedIn Sales Navigator,
Mm-hmm.
right? To do the outreach. Now we use Instantly that ties into that. And now
Mm-hmm.
we have, things like Zoom Info and Magnify to all these things that tie into
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn that LinkedIn recognizes as something that you're paying extra for
Mm-hmm.
that brings them more money.
Right.
You're getting more reach. You're
That's
hitting
right.
more people. You can see your percentages start to go up of people looking at your profile, getting curious. Again, we just got booked for a big job, Lori, with King's College in London, and they found us through the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Mm-hmm.
my point of the matter is, right, Lori, please talk to people about, and again, you said this so beautifully, it's an investment. I tell our clients never negotiate with yourself when it comes to investing in yourself. Talk about how in marketing, when you are able to do these things like that, like, the add ons, what you're trying to do, it
Mm-hmm.
just brings everything around more full circle.
Yeah, I mean, again, the most important thing that you can do out of the gate, and this is why I think it's so critical and why we place such a huge emphasis on it at CMOco, marketing and advertising, and that is have a strategic plan before you start doing things. Because you can spend a lot of time and a lot of effort, trying a lot of different advertising tactics, just thinking that I got to see if this works, I got to see if that works, just to see what sticks, and that you're going to waste, you're going to have a lot of waste. And so we really like to, before we ever implement one paid campaign, make one recommendation to do email campaigns, we do a lot of market research, we do a lot of specific industry research. We really try to dig deep within an organization and understand what is their true value proposition. It even gets so granular as to how this business is telling their story. Talk about being authentic. How are you telling your brand story in a way that is compelling with your target audience? And how are you articulating that through marketing and advertising channels? And so when we can set the stage up, one, it keeps everybody on the same page with this is what our strategic approach is going to be, because we've done our market research, we see where we fit in our competitive environment, we've listened to industry trends, we know what our revenue goals are, and so then we're able to make a very smart and thoughtful marketing and advertising mix, media recommendation and a mix with a smart budget recommendation behind it. And then we're able to measure that continuously after we start to implement. So it just eliminates some of the trial and error, if you will. It's not to say that it's going to be perfect out of the gate, because it certainly won't be. But because we're leveraging so many digital tools now and we're getting real time data, we're making real time adjustments. And that's the greatest thing about it now, is that we don't have to wait and get a Nielsen report from, a ratings report for 3 months. We can actually get real time data, and we can make real-time adjustments. We're providing our clients every single month with a comprehensive data analytics report with context around it. So we're looking at every campaign. If we're seeing one ad performing better than another, we're making adjustments on the fly, and we're saying, okay, this ad creative is performing better than this ad creative. Let's ditch the one that's underperforming. Let's create what we call a look-alike ad, something that's similar to the high-performing ad. And so it just allows us to be more nimble and, actually see better results, just because we're able to really adjust and monitor things in real time. So yeah, I mean, I think that we're just living in an age that's really awesome. The trick of it is that there's so many more messages out there, and so you have to be even more purposeful with how you're telling your story and making sure that you're really cutting through the clutter, because you have an instant to connect with somebody. And so just because there's so many, you're getting hit with so many messages all day long. So yeah, that's one thing that you have to be really purposeful about, and why it's so important to make sure that your brand story, whether it be your personal brand story or your business brand story, is one that's really relevant with the people that you're trying to connect with. And that means you have to truly understand your audience.
This is really fantastic because people think that marketing is just you throw a bunch of stuff out and you hope it sticks. And that's not what it is. And I tell people you have to understand your ideal customer
Mhm.
profile. Why you? What is relevant about you to them to connect you to get them to want to, work with you? And I tell people it's interesting. 44% of sales happen after the fourth marketing touch
Mhm.
point, which means they've had to
Mhm.
see you in some capacity 4 times at a minimum. Can you get ahead of that? Sure you can. But a lot of times even after that. So this is really important, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I would love you to take us through, right, Lori?
Mhm.
Walk us through. Somebody is going to be on boarded with you. Give us and our global audience a
Mhm.
step by step of what does that look like in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, you bet. And again, I think this is what really differentiates us from a traditional ad agency. And in most cases, when you go to a traditional ad agency, you're going to get a campaign for a point in time, and we're looking at a more bigger picture. So again, the first thing that we do, I would say the first at least 6 to 8 weeks, is really do a deep dive into the business. And I know that doesn't sound like a long time frame, but because of all the great resources out there, research resources, and hopefully the organization that's coming to us, has a good understanding of who they are and what their pain points are, for sure, and kind of where they feel their hurdles are. So we've got some good backstory from the client, but we do spend, again, the first, let's say, 8 weeks really doing a deep dive into just their business as a whole. We have a good understanding of where they are currently in terms of their revenue, what's the lowest hanging fruit in terms of driving their sales. We take a deep dive into the competitive landscape. We look at, again, industry trends, how they're currently telling their story, where they might be missing the mark. There's so many deep things that we really kind of dive into, and then the second half of that plan is really focused on the next step, how to move the brand forward. We call it the plan to win. We say this is the plan to win, and we lay out what the revenue goal is, and then we say how are we going to reach that revenue goal. And there's so many components of that, but it can be, even when we're working with a client now where we're recommending even a brand name change. They have several products in their product portfolio. We're recommending they change some of the names of their products because there's a disconnect between what they're calling the product versus how the customer perceives the product, and we've got data that backs that up. And so we get into very granular, details depending upon the type of business of what we think is going to help move the product through the pipeline. And then we get into top of funnel messaging, middle of funnel messaging, bottom of funnel messaging. So lots of messaging strategies, how they're telling their story, even down to a point of, are we going to be an emotional brand storyteller? Are we going to be a scientific brand storyteller? What is it that we feel is going to connect most with that audience? And then once we have that blueprint, then we're kind of off to the races at that point. So it is extremely strategic out of the gate. And again, the best thing that we have found by approaching it this way is that it is a strategic roadmap, strategic roadmap to what we feel is going to be their success. And so that way it keeps everybody on the same page, and we're not saying, hey, down the road, if our client wants to stray, we're like, yeah, but remember, this is what we agreed on and this is what we know is going to move the needle. And so it keeps you hyper focused.
You know what, Lori? If more people thought like this when it comes to marketing, branding, messaging, again, I've been in business for 12 years, and not till about 6 months ago, no, about 4 or 5 months ago, did I start working on all the things you're talking about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Funnels, top of the
mm-hmm.
funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, automation, messaging, tweaking, making it sound like me, LinkedIn outreach, doing these different softwares to like stuff, do this. I mean, it's
Yeah.
nuts. Like we were total old school, on a poster board, writing stuff
Yeah.
down and notes. All it was total like just Fred Flintstone caveman ages. So
Mm-hmm.
this dialogue was even big for me because it just reaffirms to me that where we're going is in the right direction and how
You are.
you can help a lot of people in my network. And we're going to chat more about that offline. But
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Lori, how can people connect with you and how can they work with you in your awesome organization?
Yeah, thank you so much. So just email me. Actually, you can just email CEO at CMOco, which is CMOco.com, or Lori, Lori, at CMOco.com. Or you can go to our website, which is CMOco.com. Also, if you want to just go to leadwithlori.com, that will take you to a landing page. We have a quick survey there. If your sales are stalled, you can do a 10-question survey, and then we'll give you some free feedback. And hopefully it's just a great way for us to connect. But I so appreciate you having me on. This has been a really great conversation, super fun. And I know we could talk for hours, but
We
I'm
should.
impressed. You're doing some great stuff already. So good for you.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Lloyd for stopping by. Reach out to her, connect with her, because I sure am. You need to do the same. We want to thank Franosity for sponsoring this episode. If you'd like to connect with Cliff Nonamacher, it's Cliff in at FRANOCITY.com. And or you can then shoot an email or go to their website, which is Franosity, FRANOCITY.com. Again, we want to thank Franosity for sponsoring. We want to thank Lloyd for stopping by. The authentic tip of this great interview: in life, have the ability to understand and relate to people you want to do business with. 72% of people say they buy from somebody they have an emotional connection to. When you connect with them and they relate to you, it's off to the races. Again, my name is Marcus Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marcus show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.